Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Homecoming 2023 Loma Talk presentation on estate planning, titled Purposeful Estate Planning. We are so grateful that you're able to join us today. Not only are we celebrating our week of Homecoming 2023 this week, we are also celebrating this year the 50th anniversary of our move from Pasadena to Point Loma and all of the transformation that's happened on our physical campus as well as on the student side of things. We'll be sending out a series of emails and updates and publications sharing with you some of the changes that have happened here over the last 50 years. So we're excited to celebrate that wonderful milestone this year. Today, you're going to be learning about the importance and value of wills, trusts, and other estate planning and income producing strategies that can benefit both yourself as well as PLNU. I'm William Burfitt from the Office of University Advancement, and I'll serve as today's moderator. Just a couple of quick questions or housekeeping items, rather. Before I introduce our speakers, I just wanted to encourage folks to post questions. I already have received several questions via email, as well as I think there may be a couple in the chat now, but we're getting that worked out. But please know there's going to be ample time at the end of today's presentation to answer questions. For those questions that aren't answered, we're going to be following up with you with an email, and we're going to have some personal outreach done on behalf of Dr. Seelig here today. So please know your questions will be answered, whether it's today or over the phone early next week. So I wanted to let you know that we have two fantastic speakers today who have between them decades and decades of experience in charitable and estate planning. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Steve Seelig, who is our Senior Director of Planned Giving and Philanthropy. Steve has been here over 25 years. He's a proud PLNU alumnus. He's worked with literally hundreds of families to help them achieve their goal of giving back to Point Loma through some type of planned gift. I'd also like to introduce Ron Webb, who's also a proud alumnus of PLNU. Ron is an attorney who's been practicing for over 25 years in the area of estate planning, business, and corporate law. He's actually served PLNU in various capacities over the years on some of our advisory boards and councils, but he's also partnered with Steve and literally hundreds of families to help, again, achieve their philanthropic goals while benefiting, of course, themselves from a tax saving standpoint, as well as from a philanthropic standpoint on the PLNU side. So without further ado, Steve and Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Will. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us. This slide shows really what Point Loma is all about. Who are you called to be? We teach this in our classes, one-on-one with students, and we're hoping that you will understand this too as a disciple of Jesus Christ. Because God calls us to a wonderful prospect of being all that we really can be with his help. So welcome back to the PLNU campus. You're going to see a lot of background slides of images that you remember from your days when you were a student here or when you visited. So enjoy beautiful Loma land. Our mission statement is much the same as it has been for decades, and that is that we teach young people what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. We also try to give them skills for their chosen professions so that when they leave here, they are equipped to go into the world, but we are shaping their personalities to be unique disciples of Christ with integrity and high calling. And then we send them back to the areas where God wants them to be, whether it's their home or around the world. We know this is part of what God has in mind.
So as part of this presentation, we're going to take a look at what are we going to learn? What do we want to present to you? Some of the reasons to plan, and also how through your planning, you can save big on taxes and increase the value of your estate. Third, looking at the ways we're planning through estate planning, looking at wills and trusts, also giving through your estate plan. How can you maximize the bequests that you give to charity through your estate planning? Some of the tax saving strategies that are available to you, and also some of the income producing strategies that might benefit you in the circumstances. And then finally, how Point Loma can help you as part of this process. Point Loma Nazarene University provides this service to you to assist you in multiplying the ministry opportunities that you have for the kingdom, and also to help us all be good stewards of what God has given us through this process.
Really, as followers of Jesus Christ, we're called to live by a higher code. This slide talks about some of the reasons why we give. I won't go through all of them. I know you can read, but I just want you to know that when you do your part, you are making a huge difference. It impacts our loved ones, it impacts the world, it impacts opportunities for serving in many, many ways.
So one of the reasons we want to take a look at that is because a lot of people fail to plan. But when you plan, look at some of the benefits that you can receive out of that. First of all, Congress is willing to forgive a tax, to give you a tax deduction as part of your planning, if you do it correctly. Second of all, is the way to increase your lifetime income and also potentially increase your net worth as part of that process. And most importantly, how you can perpetuate your giving beyond your own life. A lot of us want to leave something behind when we're gone and have it impact our world even after we're gone as part of that. And planning can help you accomplish that.
Who is a great philanthropist? And I'm sure some of you are saying, oh, not me. I don't have that much. But I want you to know, really, with your time and your effort, through your income, property, we are great philanthropists. But taxes, what is that all about? Well, it was pre-World War I days, and the 16th Amendment was passed in 1913 because our wonderful country needed money. They needed money for infrastructure, for military, for freeways, and it was devised that they would begin a new part of taxes. We call that tax and charity, two parts of the same system. There also is a personal and a social capital part. We know about our personal capital, but the social capital that our politicians invented was that they could have a part in taking part of what we own legally. And yes, they allow us to give charity. You can see on your slide on the right side, the charities in the red. But what if we could find a way to shrink what is given out to the government in taxes and give more to charity? That's what Ron and I hope to share with you today, because that's a unique strategy if you're aware of it. Ron, illustrate that for us.
So let's take a quick idea here. What if you could take a penny and double it every day for 30 days? What would you end up with? A giant pile of pennies. But seriously, what do you think we would end up with if we took a penny and doubled it every day for 30 days? Do you think we'd end up with $6,500 or maybe even $16,700? Do any of you really think we'd end up with actually $5 million if you just doubled a penny every day? Well, the fact of the matter is that if you do, you would end up with a huge sum of $5,368,000. I'll take that any day of the week. I think most of us would. But what happens if you start applying taxes to that, and what does that do? So if you take and remove a 20% tax on the daily growth of that, at the end of the day, instead of ending up with $5.3 million, you'd end up with only $252,000. So as you can see, taxes can have a huge impact on your estate and what you can do with it. Three major areas of taxes that you're going to be dealing with. First of all is capital gains tax, the tax you pay when you sell an asset. The second area is looking at estate and gift taxes, what tax you have to pay when you give away money either while you're alive or upon your death. And the government gives us the ability to give some of it free, but then once we get over that certain amount, they want to tax us. And finally, the last one is ordinary income taxes. So what are some of the elements of our estate? When we look at cash and investments is one aspect. Second of all is property, real estate. The third is insurance. And finally, our retirement assets. And as we go through today, we're going to look at different ways to plan those that would help you improve not only your income, but also your charitable deductions and gifts, and reduce your taxes as part of it.
Ron, I appreciate you helping us understand some of these limitations, but this area of wills, it's really amazing to me. Wills only take effect after death. The will does not dictate life, insurance, or retirement contracts. The will does not grant authority to your executor. And always, if you have a will, you are guaranteeing that everything is going to go through probate. And most of us don't want that.
So when we take a look at our estate planning, one of the important things you need to understand is estate planning is not a one-time effort. It's something that has to continually be updated. Most of the reasons estate plans fail is because people don't update it. So we want to take a look at some of the advantages of a living trust, making sure that our healthcare documents are up to date and our powers of attorney up to date, and also making sure that our bequests are the way we want them. It's surprising how many times I've sat down with clients to look at their estate plans and they review the gifts that they've made and they realize, wow, that was a long time ago. That person's no longer with us. I don't want to support that organization any longer. And their plan just isn't carrying out what they want anymore. And so keeping it up to date is really important for us.
We really can do better than what this slide mentions. 70% of Americans died without a will. That's huge. It shouldn't be that way. For us, for our loved ones, for the causes we believe in. And really, that's part of what Attorney Webb and I are trying to point out to you, is that it can be much better than this if we'll simply be a good steward. So God is the owner of all of our assets. He's entrusted possessions to us. We are simply the trustees of God's possessions. We are responsible to manage properly all that He has entrusted to us, and with wise management, God will increase our opportunities and give us more to use for the good of others.
Estate planning, whoops, you skipped a slide there. Estate planning is one aspect of being a good steward. God has called us and shown us in numerous different ways how we are to be good stewards. And part of that is planning our estate, preparing for the future. And then also by doing that, we're able to save significantly on taxes and also give to our kingdom opportunities and provide funding for the mission of Point Loma and the other organizations that we are really interested in supporting.
So what is estate planning? It's as simple as this statement: creation of a plan to manage your assets, both while you're alive and after you're gone.
When you're looking at your estate planning, there's only really three places where you're looking at distributing your estate. The first is friends and family, and how do we want to structure that for them, and making sure that we do that properly. Second of all, is our church or our other charitable organizations that we're interested in supporting. And third is the government, because when you fail to plan, that's where your money ends up. As you saw in that one slide that Steve provided, we have the small portion that is charity and the large portion that is government. But if we can flip those around and create a much larger portion for charity and a smaller portion for the government just by planning. And so that's the importance of looking at planning that we want to take a look at. So some of the things that we want to consider is our retirement income, and how can we improve that, or how can we increase our retirement income? And we're going to take a look at some of those options today as part of that program. Second of all is making sure that we provide for our surviving spouse, and also making sure that we provide wise distribution to our children. Many times we have children that aren't capable of managing money right now and need to be protected both from themselves and from others. And so making sure that we plan that accordingly is super important. For those people that have businesses, making sure that that business survives after we're gone. Unfortunately, a significant number of businesses fail to survive the second and third generation because a good succession plan is never put in place for them, and they end up closing down. Additionally, we want to look at avoiding paying excessive tax. As I said, taxes are frequently voluntary. In other words, the amount you pay is voluntary because you can plan around a great many of these taxes. And so we can eliminate or reduce the tax liability simply by doing good planning. And that helps us be good stewards and continue to provide gifts to support the kingdom and the ministries that are out there.
So let's look at some common estate planning goals. I've worked with thousands of families the last 25 years. And what I've discovered as I talk with families is that they really do want to very purposely distribute to family, to God's work, and to some other friends possibly. For sure, they want to avoid unnecessary costs that attorneys may charge them, or court fees. They don't want probate to happen. They don't want to have unnecessary time freezing their estate and everything being delayed for 1 to 2 years. And they want to minimize the state and federal death taxes. And maintaining privacy, something we all can agree with. We really don't want the world knowing what we really believe in and what we want to do.
So we know this is a heavy topic, and so we wanted to provide a little bit of levity here. Here you have your IRS agent showing up at the pearly gates and going, I thought Congress did away with death taxes, right? Well, actually, they did for a short period of time back in 2010. And unfortunately, they've come back with a vengeance. And one of the things that's important to understand is those amounts, the amounts that you're able to give tax-free, the tax rates, they're constantly changing. And so keeping your estate plan up to date and reviewing it is important, because the rules for that continuously change and make your plan no longer as effective as it could be. Plans that we used to put together 5-10 years ago are not the way we would plan today, because the numbers have changed so much. And that's why it's important to keep your plan up to date. So let's take a look at why people don't plan, or why they won't make a will. A lot of people, they just don't plan to die, right? They don't want to deal with this topic. It's a challenging topic to discuss sometimes, and so they don't want to talk about it. And they think that they're going to live forever, right? Or at least they're not going to die tomorrow, and so we're going to procrastinate and put this off. Second, they think that they don't have enough assets to plan, right? Their estate's not large enough, so they really don't need to plan, and they don't want to. Third is they think that putting an estate plan together is too expensive. Well, frankly, that's where the fallacy comes in, because the cost of administration of estate will take more from a small estate than it will from a large estate in percentage. And so by failing to plan, even those who have small estates are essentially wasting their money, because it's being spent in administration expenses that don't have to be paid. Third, they don't know how to start, right? They have paralysis on figuring out what's the best way to get going, and they think it's too hard to do that. But with a good estate planning attorney, they can make that process easier and semi-enjoyable to get your plan done for you. Third, or sometimes they think, well, we'll just hold our assets jointly, right? I can avoid that by just having them in our joint names. The problem with that is, although that might work until the first spouse dies, when the second spouse dies, your estate will end up going through probate then. And that's going to be a time-consuming and costly mess. And so it's really important that you realize, the cost of planning in relation to what we spend money on other things. How much money do I spend going on vacation this year? Or how much money did I spend fixing the brakes on my car? You have a $50,000 vehicle or whatever, and you spend maintenance on that, which is comparable to what it would cost you to spend on putting together a good plan. And so planning isn't really that expensive and shouldn't be avoided. So let's take a look at some of the tax issues that we're facing. First of all, as many of you know, federal income tax, we can have rates anywhere from 0 to 36%. In California, we have income tax rates anywhere from 1 to 13.3%. In addition to that, we have capital gains tax, which can be at 15 or 20% rates. And then also, if some people think, well, I'll avoid a tax by giving it to my grandkids instead of giving it to my kids, I'm going to skip that generation. Well, the IRS has a special extra tax for that. It's called the generation skipping tax. If you give money from you down to your grandkids and skip your children with sufficient assets, they will apply an additional 40% tax on that gift. Right now, in 2023, we're able to give $12.9 million estate tax free. So the first $12.9 million of your estate can be given to your children without any tax. Some people might think, well, that's a lot of money. Unfortunately, what you're facing though is that rule, that amount is scheduled to go down in 2026 to $6.8 million. And there's no guarantee that Congress won't change that number in between and even lower than that. So that's why it's important to continuously review your estate plan to make sure, is it the most tax efficient as what I'm doing? Sometimes when we look at pensions are in retirement accounts are one of the worst areas for taxes because one, you have to pay income taxes on the rates that we've looked at above, plus they can be subject to estate taxes. So they can be taxed anywhere from 30 to 80%. So all that money that you work to save in a retirement account, a vast majority of it can be lost to taxes, unfortunately. And then for those people that have their own businesses, they're looking at self-employment taxes. And finally, when you add on top of that, you get to add probate fees if you don't plan your estate with a trust. So that's a good reason to look at why we want to plan.
Well, Ron, a lot of good news there. Hey, everyone, I want you to know that we're more than halfway through our presentation today. I know it's hard to do a Zoom seminar. So if you need to stand up, stretch, whatever, stay focused on your computers if you would. But I want to talk a little more about trusts and some of the strategies that are out there for us. Most people today have a living trust. So what is a living trust? It directs the distribution of your assets like a will, but here's what's different. Your loved ones can avoid the cost and time delays of probate if you place your assets into a living trust with the help of an attorney. Tell us about that, Ron.
Sorry. Who needs a living trust? People with assets more than $166,000. In California, at least, if that's where you're living. If you have assets of $166,000 or real property, and all you have is a basic will, then upon your death, your estate goes through that court process of probate. As you've heard, that court process can take anywhere from a year to 2 years, sometimes longer in very complicated estates. And more importantly, it can cost up to 3% of the value of the estate. So it can take a huge bite out of your estate, leaving less for your family and the organizations that you want to support.
So how does a trust work? It establishes a separate legal entity. Now, it's good to work with an attorney like Ron Webb, but with an attorney's help, you establish that separate legal entity. It functions like a separate corporation, continues in existence after you're gone. You transfer the title with an attorney's help of all your major assets. You name yourself as a trustee and the beneficiary. You control the assets just as before. But here are the benefits. They're actually wonderful benefits, very, very important for us. When you place your assets into a living trust, you've put yourself on a huge trajectory to save taxes, plan their appropriate gifts, avoiding probate, maintaining control and time delays, and saving of a lot of fees. I can't think of a better way, really. So giving through your estate can save big on taxes. Let's talk about tax savings. You've heard this statement before from Ron and I today. If you're willing to plan a gift, Congress is willing to forgive a tax. So what are some giving opportunities? We want you to have options of what you can do other than just give it to the state and federal government. You may want to give, besides your family, to your church or to missions, to Point Loma for student scholarships, to annual or endowed scholarships, or even the Loma Fund, which helps so many students, memorial gifts, remembering those that we love. There may be a lot of things that you're really interested in doing.
So how do you give through your estate plan, through your will or your trust? Well, some of the ways of doing that is giving, say, a set amount. I want to give a specific dollar amount. I want to give 10,000. I want to give 50,000 to either an individual or a charity for a scholarship. I want to give a percentage. I've got clients that have told me I want to leave 10% of my estate to my church or to these various organizations as a tithe. It's, I didn't pay tithe on the growth as it was invested, so I'm going to pay a tithe when I'm gone. And third, looking at what we call residuary gifts, or saying after I've given all these specific gifts above, I want to leave whatever is left to friends or charity as ways to do that as part of your plan.
We work so hard to earn money. We struggle to save. We learn how to give. It's vital to know how to leave what we have when that time comes. So let's talk about some tax strategies. Tax strategies are very, very helpful if we understand them. And this is where it comes in really handy. If you talk with an attorney like Ron Webb or myself, we will help you understand the strategies and what you might want to know that will benefit you better. You designate the recipient charity as a beneficiary on retirement accounts, IRAs, CDs, mutual funds, and life insurance. Ron, you want to turn your...
Yeah, let's take, sorry, I had a little coughing fit there, so I had muted myself. Let's take a little example, take a look at one of the examples as one ways that we can deal with our IRAs or a 401k, a retirement account. What are ways that we might be able to bypass some of the income tax on account, or also maybe bypass the estate tax that's going to be part of that? And third, how can we distribute that IRA? IRAs are governed by the beneficiary statement, and so looking at ways to address that as part of our plan can be very important. As your example, right now, Congress has given us a special opportunity dealing with our retirement accounts called a qualified charitable distribution. So many of us who are already older and have triggered our required minimum distributions. You have to take out a certain amount from your IRA every year. There are clients that they don't need that income, but they have to take it anyway. And so they're getting hit with that tax and they'd like to do something else with it besides that. Well, Congress gives you the opportunity to take your RMD, your required minimum distribution, and distribute that directly to a charity. And by doing that qualified charitable distribution, you're able to, one, avoid the income tax that you would otherwise have to be hit with, because normally you would take the distribution, it comes into your hands, you pay the income tax, then you either spend it or give it to charity. But by being able to give it directly to charity, you're able to avoid that income tax on that distribution. Second of all, you get a charitable deduction for making that contribution to charity. So you're able to improve the amount that or the taxes that you can deduct from the other assets that you still have. Recently, under the Secure Act, it was what we call Secure Act 2.0. Congress changed the required minimum distribution ages. So if you haven't had to take your RMDs yet, that's now been extended to age 73, but they've left the 70 and a half age requirement for these qualified charitable deductions, and enables you to give, in addition to that, under the Secure Act, you're able to give a one-time gift of $50,000 to charity to fund either a charitable gift annuity, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about, or a charitable remainder trust, which is another vehicle for making some charitable donations.
And Ron, am I right? Going back to that last slide here, Will, if people open up a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust, they're creating income streams for themselves. If they're blessed with having a large IRA, they can actually receive extra income and get charitable benefits at the same time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. So let's talk about if a family have, let's say, $500,000 in their estate. When they pass, they have choices that are there. Many families that I work with, they want to tithe on their estate, and so they might give that charity $50,000, leaving $450,000 that they might want to pass to children. And then they have an IRA, let's say it's $50,000, they pass that to children. But notice what happens in that bottom left corner. The children aren't getting the full value because the IRA has full income tax and the IRA has estate tax potential. But what if you talk with an attorney or gift planner like myself? What are some other things that really could be done? The IRA could be given directly to charity. The IRA has no estate tax and no income tax. And then the family, they can give that property totally to children, and they have benefited their income, their family, and they have done what they believe God wants them to do, and they've avoided the tax issues altogether.
Steve, I want to just point out, go back to that slide real quick. Just as you can see, just by planning and giving different assets to different people in this example, you've cut out the IRS to the tune of, $15,000 there. So you've been able to increase the amount that you give to charity or your family by $15,000 and reduce that would otherwise go to the government. So it's a simple act of planning and using the right assets that can dramatically improve the impact that your gifts can make.
Thank you, Ron.
And that's mine, sorry. Let's take another example here is what we would call a testamentary trust, or what we would call a charitable remainder trust. What it does is it enables you to, one, bypass the capital gains on assets that are highly appreciated, and also generate an income stream for you. And third, generate an estate and income tax deduction. By leaving the asset into a trust, you're able to accomplish those goals and receive the tax benefits that the government gives you by using that vehicle. So let's take a look at that, how that works. First of all, you take part of the estate and you put it into a trust. That trust can pay, depending on how it's structured. In this case, we're going to look at what we would call a charitable lead trust, where that trust pays the church or Point Loma or some other charitable organization for 10 years. It pays the lead portion. And then upon the end of that 10 years, it pays the remainder to your family. By doing that, you're able to avoid the capital gains for the asset that you put into that trust. You get a tax deduction for that 10 years of income that you give to the charities, and then the rest goes estate tax-free on to your children.
So if you're willing to plan a gift, Congress will forgive a tax. That's a wonderful thing. We're not quite sure how it works, but that's why you want to talk to an attorney or someone like myself. If we plan ahead, we get great tax benefits, but if we don't plan ahead, everyone you value loses. So what are some income producing strategies? If you have property or stock, this is one that I call a capital gains bypass trust. The official name is a charitable remainder trust. You can bypass the gain, increase income, save big on taxes immediately and for up to 5 years, and it guarantees retirement. So here's how a bypass trust works. Provides income to the individual, you or your family, during your lifetime or for a set number of years. And then you designate the charity that you want to receive the remaining principal at the end.
Another example, which is a way of increasing your income, is utilizing a gift annuity. A lot of clients want to generate income as part of their planning, and so they take a look at getting guaranteed payments over a period of time. The way you do that is you take either cash or an asset, whether it's stock or real estate, and you put that into a gift annuity. the organization agrees to pay you an income stream over a period of time or for your life. You can add to that or create new ones. So I've got clients that have sat down and they've about every other year for a period of time, they created another gift annuity. The payments can be structured to begin either immediately, or you can defer it and say, okay, I'm going to give it now, but I don't need the income for a few years, so I'm going to let it grow and then start receiving the income. And most importantly is by doing this structure, you're able to save significantly on your taxes because you receive a tax deduction that you're then able to use and offset against other income in your estate. So who should consider
a gift annuity, Ron?
Yep. So who should consider a gift annuity? Individuals that are 65 or older. If you've got maybe some CDs, old CDs that are maturing that we're paying next to nothing, as many of you know, the current interest environment has been very low over the past number of years. They've started going up, but using a gift annuity can significantly increase that payout that you're getting, and thus increase your current income. If you're looking at more of a guaranteed income stream, one of the things that gift annuities provide is the ability to lock in a specific payment structure for you that helps you plan by knowing what your income is going to be. And finally, the benefit of a gift annuity is that by doing that, you're able to also benefit Christian education or benefit your other charitable goals that you're trying to accomplish.
And the rates are so attractive. Folks, the rates have gone up just in January. At age 60, you see it's 4.9, but if you wait until you're in your 70s or 80s, you can see 8.7% or even 9.7. And if you wait for a 5-year period to defer rates, you do the document, you put the money into this guaranteed plan, the gift annuities can even be higher. It's amazing. But please, let me help you release the money that's trapped in the tax system. This is what an attorney like Ron Webb or a gift planner like myself, we know the strategies. We can look at your situation and listen to what your priorities are and help you accomplish what your goals are without having to pay a lot of excess taxes.
So in addition to some of the more complex gifts that we just talked about, you can also make simple direct gifts, right? Simple direct bequests. One, doing that through your will and trust by leaving a specific amount or percentage to your church or charitable organizations, and also looking at using the beneficiary designations on your retirement accounts, right? As you saw in that one illustration, by leaving the IRA to charity instead of your children, you actually improve the amount that you can leave your children and reduce the taxes. By designating beneficiaries on your life insurance or even an annuity that you purchase, whether what we would call sometimes a non-qualified annuity that you just purchase to generate income for yourself. Each of those can be structured to make a direct gift as part of that. The other thing we want to look at is, can we make contingent bequests? Gifts that occur after a particular requirement has been satisfied, whether that's in some cases to your children and making them satisfy certain requirements, or giving it as an alternative. If you don't meet this requirement, then the gift goes somewhere else. Additionally, looking at as a percentage of the estate, right? I want to split a large sum by giving out percentages of it to various entities or individuals. And finally, looking at the benefits that we receive from that, not only the tax savings that you're able to generate, but also the ability to carry out your charitable intent, and also the flexibility of, with your estate plan, it's something that you can change, you can update. And so you have flexibility in who you make those gifts to. Go ahead, Steve.
A will or bequest is a great way to think about your estate plan. The methods, you've heard us talk about it, a revocable living trust. It's necessary to protect your assets and your heirs by having things in a plan that's up to date and it reflects where you're currently at.
Well, great. Well, Steve and Ron, this has been so informative and so helpful. I wanted to shift to the Q&A portion of the presentation today. We've gotten several questions via email. I know some will be trying to send those to the chat as well, but please don't worry if you don't get your question answered today. Please know that Steve is going to be following up with you in the next couple of days and you can get your questions answered. So Steve and Ron, the first question is, it says, I'm trying to finalize my will. Can I designate multiple departments or areas at PLNU in my will?
Yes. We've got clients that will leave multiple gifts to various scholarships, and then also a gift to the university in general for its general use. You can also work with Steve to establish any number of different scholarships or funds to carry out your plan. So yes, you can designate multiple ones.
Great, thanks, Ron. Next question is, I'm interested in establishing a charitable gift annuity. Is there a minimum amount needed to set that up?
I can answer that. At this time, the minimum amount is $25,000, and that's because of the different requirements that are in effect, but as well as maximizing your interest in your time. That a $25,000 amount will give you significant income, but it also provides a way for you to consider if you started with 25 or you want to add to that, you can do that later, or you can even do it with a larger amount, but 25,000 is the minimum amount to create the guaranteed income stream for yourself and get some great tax benefits.
Great. And then, Steve, I wanted to come back, both Steve and Ron, I wanted to come back to the idea you mentioned you could do an immediate gift annuity or also defer the payments. Now, a question was around deferring payments. So if you were 65 at the time you established the gift annuity, but if you defer payments till you turn 70, are you going to be locked in at the rates at 65 when you set it up, or are you going to be locked at the rate as a 70-year-old when you start receiving those deferred payments?
You've answered that very well. So you put it into effect at age 65, but you defer it for 5 years. You're going to receive the income as if you're at age 70 for that 5.9%. And it even goes even higher than that when the deferred portion is there. Usually it's about 3 to 4%, I'm sorry, 0.4% higher by deferring it for any period of years.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Let's see, the next question is, has to do with wills. I want to update my will. Who should I speak with at Point Loma about that?
Probably that's me. And I've had the privilege to help hundreds of families to, in listening to them, what they're really trying to accomplish. What I do is I send them the data forms, which we're going to do today. We'll probably send that to you early next week. The data forms is a convenient way to ask the questions and let you fill the blanks in, and I can help you complete that. It's a 4 or 5 page form, very easy, takes maybe 20, 30 minutes. And then I'll ask you, which attorney do you want to forward this to, who can then fulfill that. Some of you may want to use some kind of a legal plan that is provided through your jobs. If you don't have an attorney, I can suggest one or several attorneys like Ron Webb who are available. Ron's a California attorney. He helps people with Zoom calls in person at his Mira Mesa address, and it can be very, very helpful. One thing I wanted to ask you, if Ron could even maybe explain, Ron, would you tell us how often should people check their trust?
Sure.
What's the process of needing to update it. When should that happen? We put it in place, then we forget it. We put it on autopilot. What do you
Right.
recommend?
So we encourage our clients to review their estate plan every 3 to 5 years at a minimum. Or if a significant change in their family has occurred, we've had more kids, or unfortunately, maybe one of our kids passed away. If there's been a significant change in their financial situation, you bought that pre-IPO stock and then it went public and now you're much more wealthy than you thought you were. So each of those types of events are important to review your plan. And like I said, at a minimum, we encourage people to sit down every 3 to 5 years to make sure, because like I said, the tax rules change. And so the plan that you created 10 years ago isn't the plan that you would probably use today because of the changes in the rules.
Okay, great, Ron. Thank you. We had another question around living trusts, and hoping you can shed some light on this, Steve. Is there a cost to set up a living trust? And if so, what does that typically run?
It varies really which attorney you use. What I try to do is refer people to Christian attorneys. Normally, it can cost anywhere from $1,500 even to $2,000, sometimes more if there are complicated bypass provisions. But what I try to point out to people is not really what it costs, but it's how much it saves you. With a bypass provision, you could save your family hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a good thing to have in place. But you do have choices of which attorneys you use, and I can help you find the attorneys either in person or through a Zoom call. An attorney like Ron Webb is available to help you wherever you are.
And let me just jump in on that. Yes, fees can vary significantly, not only between attorneys, but also because of the complexity of your estate plan. I would strongly encourage you, there are some organizations or services out there to do it yourself. And I would strongly encourage you, that is not a place that you want to play in, because most people don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand the questions that are being asked. And I have seen so many do-it-yourself plans that are just an absolute mess. And the cost to fix those after you're gone, or to deal with those after you're gone, can be 5 to 10 times the amount that you would have spent just to do it right the first time. This is just not an area to try to be your own lawyer. It's just not a good idea. There's just too many mistakes that people make as part of that process.
Will, can I chip in one thought here?
Please.
For those who are tuning in and you don't have significant assets, let's say you don't even have a home or you're under $162,000. You primarily want to provide guardianship for young children, or you want powers of attorney for legal and financial matters. $300-400 is the average cost of the attorneys that I refer people to. It helps to have things set up. We want to help the attorneys save time, but you can have a wonderful wills package with the powers of attorney that can really make a huge impact for you. If you have significant assets, you're going to want to consider a will and a trust, but that's where Ron or I could guide you in the right way.
Right. And to point out and emphasize, even individuals that don't have a larger estate, having a basic will, and more importantly, a financial power of attorney and a healthcare directive is absolutely critical, because what happens is, let's say you become incapacitated. We get older, we get dementia, we get Alzheimer's, whatever. We end up in a car wreck. If you don't have a power of attorney for healthcare, you don't have a financial power of attorney, your family is left with having to go to court and get what's called a conservatorship proceeding. They're having to get an order by the court that authorizes somebody to make your financial decisions for you and access your financial accounts, and also to make medical decisions for you. That process, that conservatorship process, easily runs $5,000 to $10,000. So for a mere $500, you can get a basic will and a power of attorney versus $5,000 and the hassle of having to deal with the court. So planning is important for everyone.
Great points, Ron. Thank you. I just have two more questions, and then we'll wrap up for the day. So Stephen, Ron, here's a great question, really at the intersection of IRAs and trusts. And the question is it better tax-wise to make the beneficiary of an IRA an individual or charity and not the trust?
Okay. So that's a very technical question. Leaving your IRA to charity is a great way to, eliminate the income taxes on that plan. So when we work with clients, we strongly encourage them to look at, if you're going to do charitable giving as part of your estate, the first place you want to look at doing that with is your retirement account, because of the tax benefits and the tax avoidance that you get from that. As to naming an individual as the beneficiary versus your trust, that's also a very challenging area. We typically would encourage people, if you're going to name go ahead and name an individual, but do not name minors. Okay, do not name your grandchild as the beneficiary of my IRA. You're going to create a guardianship provision requirement, and their parent is going to have to go to court and get a guardianship over their own child, which just confounds people. I had a client who her husband had designated her son, their minor son, as the beneficiary of a life insurance policy. And unfortunately, he died in a car accident. And because that child was a minor, he was about 10 years old, she had to go to court and get appointed by the court as the guardian of the estate of her own son. And to try to explain that to her and make her understand that, yes, even though you're the parent's child and you get to make medical decisions, you have to go to court and get the court to give you permission to manage their money. It's not a good choice. So that's where we work with clients to make sure they do that properly and get the right people designated as part of their plan.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ron. And then the last question comes from someone who is out of state. They're back east, actually. Is it important that if they're in a state outside of California, that they work with an attorney within their state, or should they work with an attorney here in California?
No, they need to work with an attorney that's licensed in their state to represent individuals in their state.
Great. Okay. Very good. Well, I did want to just share, before I pass it back over to Steve to close us out, wanted to share again that we will be sending out a recording of today's presentation along with some follow-up documents. But again, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here today. I hope you found this presentation informative. And Steve, I'm going to pass it over to you to close us out.
Thank you, Will. I want to make sure you realize a whole team of us worked to put this seminar in place for you. Attorney Webb, Will Burfett, Christina Gardner, Wendy Berryhill, Sarah Bensfield. A lot of us, we want to help you make the right decisions that benefit you and your loved ones. So thank you for tuning in today. We have your email. We will send out the evaluation slides, a recording of the process, and I will be contacting you to help you get started if there's a way I can do that. So please, you may have other questions. Don't be afraid to ask myself or attorney Ron Webb. If you see my email here on the slide, that's my cell phone, the 301-4782, and I'm happy to forward any of the questions you have. I don't try to be an attorney. I'm a gift planning representative. I work with attorneys like Ron Webb so that your services are really met in the best way. Thank you, folks. We appreciate you tuning in and look forward to you joining in to other homecoming activities as you're able. And we'll look forward to talking to you beginning next week.